So we finished up our final render for Jet, and we're actually going to set ourselves up for an animation. Here are the things we need to do. We need to get rid of any objects that we have left over. I'm going to get rid of this light. I'm going to get rid of that target. I'll get rid of the floor. And I'm going to get rid of the physical sky as well. And we're just going to have the model to start with. So to set ourselves up, we're going to go ahead and go up in here to split screen, and we're going to be using this overhead view here, right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click that little tab in the upper right hand corner and zoom out a bit, and I'm going to put my plane in the lower right hand corner of my screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to build an environment for this plane to fly through. So we're going to go up here and we're going to grab a sky, and we're going to go into the primitives and we're going to grab a plane. And we're going to take this plane and scale it up. So I'm going to hit the scale tool up here and just start dragging and make this thing really large. And let me zoom out just a little bit. And this will give us an area to build from. Go back and click the plane, and we're going to go down to these segments, and I'm going to type in 50 for width and 50 for height. Hit enter on your keyboard, and we're going to come back to this here in just a minute. I'm actually going to scale it up just a little bit more, and I'm going to use my move tool and move this off to the side here just a little bit, because again we're going to start with this plane in the lower right hand corner, or I'm sorry, the jet in the lower right hand corner of this plane that we're building. Let me stretch it out just a little bit. Okay, so we've got this shape called plane, and I'll start referring to my jet as a jet. As a matter of fact, I'm going to click this this little area that says subdivision surface, and if you double click it, I can go in and I can type in jet. And we're going to start naming things. The plane that we just dropped in, double click it, and let's go ahead and call that a canyon. That way we won't get confused on what's what. Okay, so now I have the start of where my canyon is going to be, and this looks pretty decent. I actually want to stretch it out just a little bit more. And let's go ahead and define where this jet is going to fly. To do that, we're going to go up here and we're going to grab our sketch pen. Okay, so don't grab pen, grab sketch. And we're going to go in and draw a line where we want this thing to fly through our canyon. Don't get too close to the edges. You can actually crisscross if you want to, but I'm going to stay really, really simple and have that plane or the jet start right here, and it's going to fly through this canyon. Now the spline that I just drew, I'm going to click point mode. You can see where these little nodes are, and I can make adjustments to the spline later on to make my plane or my jet twist through the canyon, or add some special effects to its flight path. But just to get started, draw a simple spline. If you don't like what you drew, go ahead and hit undo, or just go up here and select it in your objects manager, hit delete, and redraw it. I'm just going to go ahead and leave this this simple flight path through the canyon and kind of go with it there. So let's go back to the canyon itself, and we're going to start modeling this and see what we can get out of this canyon. So select the canyon, go up here to make editable, and when I click that, you can see all the geometry that we just made by adding those 50 segments vertically and horizontally. So this is the geometry that we'll use to build the canyon. Go up and click your live selection tool, and we're going to select a bunch of the polys and do some extrude and add some geometry to this canyon. So I'm going to go down here into poly mode, and with that live selection tool, I'm going to select the area that I want to be a canyon where the actual jet is going to fly through. I'm going to bump my radius up a bit so that the selection is a little bit easier to make. You can bump that up or down. And I'm just going to start dragging through this canyon. Now I want to pay attention to how wide my jet is. That way I have an area for the thing to fly through. I don't want it to be too narrow. So I'm just going to start dragging around where my spline is. And again, with canyon selected, drag around a little flight path. And this will make a lot more sense once we get into our next view. But I'm going along where the spline is that I drew. And I'm just going to thicken it up in a couple of parts here to make sure that the jet can get through without its wings hitting the side of the canyon. If you accidentally deselect, just go through and reselect. If there's something that you want to deselect, you can add to this by holding Shift, and you can deselect by holding Command. So let me get the rest of this selected. And I'm going to go ahead and hold Shift on my keyboard and drag around a couple more spots that will be, I guess, lower or depressions. Okay, so we're going to go back up in here and click the split screen view. And now I want to go into my normal perspective view. So I'll go ahead and click the tab for it. And I'm going to zoom out. I've zoomed out a little bit too much. And pan around, hold Option on your keyboard. And actually, if I click on my jet and hit O for object, it will take me to that. Let me just zoom out a little bit so we can see this. Now that we're working with a big space, it's a little bit harder to navigate. So I use these navigation tools up here just so I can see everything that I'm working with. So I'm going to go back and select that canyon, and notice my selection is still there. But I want to actually invert that selection. I want this stuff to be low, and I'm going to extrude everything else to raise it up. So I'm going to go up to Select and go down to Invert, and everything that wasn't selected now is. I'll hit D on my keyboard, and I'm going to go ahead and push this up a bit so that I can start to build some depth in this canyon. And not too deep, but just to kind of get some stuff going. And again, if you hold Command on your keyboard with your selection tool, you can deselect some areas. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Deselect kind of along the canyon wall here. And we'll extrude one more time. And you can experiment with the shape of the canyon and different features all you want. Again, just hit undo if there are things that you've done that you don't like. So I'm going to go ahead and hit D for extrude again. Extrude it up a little bit more to add a little bit more feature to it. And that looks pretty good. So I'll go back to model mode now. And I'm going to zoom out just a touch more and kind of move things around. And to fix the shape of my canyon, I'm not a big fan of how things look right now. I'm going to go into the subdivision surface again and drag that canyon underneath it. And that will round things out. It'll look a little bit more realistic. And it looks like I like the shape of the canyon, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep it as is. Now, the next thing that I need to add is some material to my canyon and get some lighting going. So actually, let's go up and grab an infinite light right now so that we can get some lighting going. So infinite light is kind of like using the sun. It should go along that z-axis. It'll point down to the z-axis. And to adjust it, all you have to do is hit your rotate tool, and I can start to adjust where the sun's going to hit this canyon. So we're just going to rotate around a little bit. Let me rotate on this axis as well, just to kind of cast some shadows over to the side. And that looks actually pretty decent. So another thing I'd like to do with this infinite light is I'm going to add a little bit of color to it and kind of warm things up just a touch. So I can go down here and I can mess around with this these sliders here underneath general when you click on your light, and kind of like that. So I'm going to go back to basic too, and let's see, let's add, actually let's go back to general and let's add some shadows. So if we go down to shadow where it says none, if you click on that, we can either select a soft set of shadows, or in this case I'm going to go with that ray traced hard so that we can get some harsh shadows down there in the canyon. And if I was to hit render view, this is going to take quite some time. So let me undo a couple of settings. I'm going to undo global illumination and ambient occlusion, and actually object glow as well from our previous render. And now when I hit render, it should go a little bit faster and I can get an idea what this is going to look like. So the canyon's still gray, but you can see there are really harsh shadows down there. So let's go ahead and add another light. So we'll go up here and add light, and with light selected, let's go down and add some color to it. I'm actually going to cool it down a bit. So we have that warmer sunlight, and we'll make it cooler in the shadows. And I'm going to go down and add this effect, Ambient Illumination, and that should illuminate pretty much every little nook and cranny in there. It's kind of like casting a general light over top of it. So now when I hit render, we'll see what this is looking like. That took care of those harsh shadows, and I actually really like the look of that. Okay, so some other things that we do need to add, we're going to add some material to our canyon. So we can either double click to add material down here, or if you want to go up in the content browser and just grab any type of material, go ahead and do that. And I'm going to jump ship on this and go into the content browser, go into presets, visualize, materials, and let's go ahead and add stone might work. Let's try, there's a sandstone in here, I believe, right here. Yeah, let's add sandstone to the canyon. Get a quick render to see what this is going to look like. Yeah, I kind of like that. I do want to adjust my light though, and this light. Make it a little less blue. So I'll keep it cool, but I'm going to turn that blue down just a bit on that Omni light. Okay, so we have a canyon designed, we have some texture on it, and some lighting. And that should at least get us going for our animation. And we're going to break at this point and come back, and we'll jump into to animation with the next video.